You're listening to Systemic Error Podcast. The failure was designed.
Lawmaker vows retribution to Trump for stealing soldiers' resources, based on an article by Adam Lynch. A carrier at sea and a government adrift. The people paying the price. Families of sailors and Marines aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln say their relatives are exhausted, short on basic supplies, and stuck in a deployment that has stretched to 9 months at sea and 5 months of combat operations against Iran. The reporting centers on moldy showers, food shortages, missing hygiene items, punishing shifts, and no clear return date. That is the material reality. The political reality is worse. This is not an accident of war. It is the consequence of executive will, military compliance, and a budgetary system that treats enlisted bodies as expendable inventory. Power has a name. The decision maker here is not abstract. Trump is the one continuing and extending the campaign with no clear end in sight. His defense secretary is part of the machinery keeping the operation moving, and if the deployment has been extended twice, then the chain of command has chosen endurance over human limits. That matters because the article's language still flattens responsibility into a kind of atmospheric strain. The sailors are weary. Families are concerned, but exhaustion does not emerge on its own. It is produced by command decisions. The Navy did not stumble into a 9th month at sea. Someone ordered it. The cheapness of military life. The source also points to a more familiar Washington scam. Money meant for troops gets redirected into presidential vanity projects and endless operations. Jason Crow says the administration took money from barracks and housing and sent it to Trump's border wall, then kept reprogramming funds out of welfare and quality of life accounts. That is not a clerical dispute. It is a hierarchy of priorities made visible. The same government that can find money for contingency operations and border theater cannot guarantee soap, toilets, or laundry for the people carrying out its wars. The message is plain. The troops are useful when deployed and disposable when maintained. The families know more than the Pentagon. The families are not just complaining about discomfort. They are reporting the first signs of institutional failure, deteriorating conditions, exhausted crews, long lines for basic supplies, and fears that damaged equipment and overwork could turn deadly. One family member says holes have worn through the flight deck. That is not morale language. That is operational warning. Their fear of retaliation also tells you something essential. The military's internal order depends on silence. Families have to speak anonymously because the institution that claims to defend the nation can still punish the people closest to its damage. That is how power protects itself, not through transparency, but through intimidation. The real story is not stress. If this were being framed honestly, the headline would not be about strain or concern. It would be about a president expanding a military campaign without clear limits, an administration stripping support from troops to feed its own priorities, and a defense system willing to burn people out before it admits the mission is politically and materially unsustainable. The article's strongest material is also its clearest indictment. The war continues. The carrier stays out. The supplies run thin. And the people with no say in the strategy are made to absorb the cost. That is not administrative drift. It is what government looks like when command becomes detached from accountability. A system built to spin bodies. This story exposes the oldest U.S. military lie, that sacrifice is honored while soldiers and sailors are used up. In practice, the honor talk is cover for managerial indifference. The institutions that decide deployments, budgets, and war aims rarely live with the consequences they impose. So the pattern is bigger than one ship. It is a government that can prolong conflict, raid welfare accounts, and pretend that overworked crews are just a temporary inconvenience. The people aboard the Abraham Lincoln are not suffering from bad luck. They are paying for a political system that treats war as authority and logistics as someone else's problem. You've been listening to Systemic Error. Thanks to Alternet for today's article, with the automated voice of Joe. Thanks for listening.